So I have a kangaroo joke, but for later. So this edition,
I
welcome
don't like that.
to the Baer Faxt Live, is sponsored by Manuela, New York, by Art Farm. And I don't know if you've been there yet. It's a restaurant and bar in Soho. You remember Soho is like the home of art. You know, we remember that those
That's
days.
great. Love it.
And they have like the best seasonal products, plus great art on the wall. So check out www.manuela-nyc.com. And for this segment, we're joined by a woman who I think probably has the most frequent flyer miles in the art business, Amanda Love from Australia. You must be like
I'm pretty up there. Exactly.
pretty up
yes.
there into like global client, right?
Love a frequent flyer mile, absolutely.
So from Australia, how many times a year do you leave? Either for America, Asia, Europe?
Generally about 3 times a year. Generally, obviously I try and time it so that I leave for either the summer season. So usually I go to Art Basel Hong Kong, then try and come back to Australia. This time I couldn't. I had to go to Tracy Emin's exhibition in Yale. So that meant I had to go straight to New York from Hong Kong. So on this trip I've been travelling since Art Basel Hong Kong. So that's about 3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months. So maybe not the most mileage, but maybe the most like hotel points of anybody in the world. Because as an art advisor, which Amanda is, it's like you have to go, right?
You have to go. You have to be there, and it's a pleasure to be there because that's the excitement of it, and that's sort of living in the world, living in the dream, living the art. You have to be there.
Before we get to Basel, I'm sort of curious because as I travel more, there are places like they're very concerned with how their region is thought of. And they're like, how do we expand outward? But how do they look here? And like, it's sort of a general question. We hear it a lot in the Gulf and in new regions. So like, is there such a thing as like Australian art?
Of course, but Australian art is international art, as we like to say. And Australian, I feel Australia is an interesting country and an interesting sort of area in terms of art and in terms of the world, because we're a young country. We have an English colonial heritage overlaid by American popular culture. We had a post-war European immigrant population and a post-Vietnam War Asian population. Coupled with that, we're Pacific Rim. We have an indigenous population of history of over 60,000 years, which we are hanging on to by our fingernails, which gives us a spiritual relationship to the earth.
Which the rest of the world is suddenly glomming onto.
Well, that's right. And so I think Australia's relationship to what we call contemporary art is that we can think inside the square and we understand philosophically the whole Western tradition of art and contemporary art in particular. But because we're upside down, because we have all those other factors, we're not bound by it. So we can
the opportunity for explosion is there. I would say, in some ways, the single most important sale of a work of art in the 20th century was probably made by Australia.
Blue Poles, Jackson Pollock.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's like that, and Ben Heller was a family friend of my family, but this guy was sort of unknown now. But that's sort of changed everything, didn't it?
Well, it sort of changed things, but I feel we might have taken a few steps back since then. But we're trying to sort of redress that. That was a great moment in Australian history generally, and in Australians' cultural history.
So for those of you who were born this century, it's like, what was it, $1 million or something? It was some crazy amount of money, and to have,
I think it was the most ever paid for, certainly a Pollock.
Or even
a work of art.
A work of art maybe at that point.
Mm.
And it's like, wow. I mean, I got to imagine that every kid in Australia grew up seeing that.
Absolutely. Destination work.
For me, Pollock's destination work, whenever I have a crisis about it, so after like 9/11, it's like, why does art matter? And how do we get back to work? I went to MoMA and sat in a room with Pollock's. And for me, that's like the spiritual king. Now he's an old dead white guy, so maybe he's not so popular anymore.
Well, that was that time. I remember first walking into MoMA from Australia and finally making it to America. walking through, and I just had a smile on my face, seeing all my friends that I'd learned about in books, and I couldn't believe it.
Well, now, I mean, the information gap is closed, but it's still a big logistical gap to like send the work there, right?
It is. I mean, it's for Australian galleries to show overseas. I mean, there's the shipping, there's the distance, and also there's a perception that I think Australian art has suffered from because we're marginal. I mean, people have ideas and produce art at different time, at the same time. They produce similar concepts, but it's a question of who gets to own it. And if you're from the centre, you get to own it. If you're from the margin, you're then forever seen as derivative, or you're seen through the centre. And Australia really suffers from that, or has suffered traditionally from that point of view. And that's why you mentioned Indigenous art. That's why that is becoming so important, because that is completely uninfluenced. And that's one of its absolute strengths.
Yes, it's a field I don't really know, but I can feel it when I see it. And it's like, wow, that's probably the most art for the dollar in the world. And it's like, and I just feel it. It's like, I don't know much about it. And I've gone to buy some stuff, and it's like, I've seen it in strange places. It's like, I know there's something there, but I don't know the hierarchies and the history, and even that 60,000 years you need to know.
Well, that's right. I mean, you like it because you can relate to it because it looks like contemporary art. It looks like modern art. So you have that immediate reaction and relationship with it. But then it's often comforting for people who don't know the art because you might go behind and it has a story attached to it that a lot of people feel comforted by.
But I think the simultaneous thing you say is true. It's like in the early 60s when pop art, we thought that was everywhere, but in East Germany and all that, they didn't know about it. Or maybe they saw one picture in Life magazine. So the history can get taken by, I'm a New Yorker, so I believe in this sort of thing. We own minimalism, we own pop art. And I think, was it the Tate that did a show about pop art from around the world that wasn't American? Remember that show?
Totally. I can't remember the name of it. But I mean, that's been the mandate of these big institutions for the last, say, 10 years now, going back and reclaiming overlooked areas that were passed over.
But we don't want to have an Australian room and a Ghana room.
No.
How do we get around that?
Well, I don't think, well, as I said, Australian art is international art. All art is international art. It can just be more plural in its regionalisation.
The Australian friends of the Pompidou and Australian friends of the Tate and Australian friends of whatever? Doesn't that work both ways? It ghettoizes it.
Cultural fracking. It's cultural fracking by these organisations, which is a good thing, but you know it does happen.
Do we get fracked too?
Well, to the extent that the Tate and the Pompidou have American friends of the state and which they do, but where, for instance, the Tate is showing Emmeline Murray, about to open in about 3 weeks in London, which will be the first, I think it's the first solo show by a female artist, and she's an Australian Indigenous artist. So thank you, the Australian friends of the Tate.
I wonder how the Brits feel.
Well, they're loving it. They're showing it.
Yeah, but I mean the public.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see, because there's a...
Yeah.
So let's dive a little bit, and we're sitting in Basel. You came all the way here. You probably go to, how many? There are now 5 Art Basels. I was trying to remember.
As we speak, 5.
As we speak, 5. It's, oh my God. You know, I couldn't come up with the 5th for a minute because I forgot Miami Beach. But what do you make of your time here in the fair?
Well, this year I find it a bit of a Goldilocks year. I know that it's tough for the galleries, or it's tougher for the galleries, but it reminds me of when I first started to come to Basel, which I think it must have been in the mid-90s, and then, as you remember, it was a generational change. It was sort of the YBA artists and that kind of contemporary, the German photographers, all were coming into play against the artists that were the older artists, which was, you know, I remember it was full of Imogen Noble, Stephen Balkenol,
Hank, Lupertz.
Yeah, exactly, Gunter Ecker. They were everywhere. And then it was the young crowd breaking in, and they were all up on the first floor. And I feel they're all now down on the second floor, and they're the sort of the status quo. And there's a generational change with, obviously, you know, younger generation coming in, wanting different types of art, wanting different ways to look at art, wanting different experiences. And I think this fair is actually seems to be catering to that. There seems to be a nice, steady sales. It seems to be the works, there are good works that are well priced. We haven't got the big Louise Bourgeois millions of dollars of works, but we do have expensive works. And then there's also works at a price point. I feel the galleries have catered to that, a
Now,
lower
did you
price
come
point.
with clients?
I came with a few, yeah.
Because my hat as an advisor, if the clients are here, they want to buy something.
Well, that's why
I mean, it's pretty hard for them to leave without buying something, which is good for you because there's revenue. For me, trying to think about sending a JPEG to somebody, this just generally doesn't happen. It's getting the people in front of the work, right?
It is, but I mean, I have to work a lot with JPEGs. I mean, I find that I can bring people here, and then they understand it.
So you look at all those previews and filter it down.
I look
and
at
you
all
open
those previews.
Hundreds of them.
I
and
do.
You create little files and keep the data. See, I don't do that.
I do it. I have to do it.
And
You're from New York.
And your clients expect that, right?
Well, that's the only way that they can become educated and become familiar with the work and become familiar with it without coming here all the time.
How often do they buy something of the PDF and it gets in and they go, what did I do?
Usually never, because I mean, usually there's a huge process of sort of usually seeing the work in person first somewhere, and then just being updated.
What I like to say, somebody has to see it first.
Yeah.
It's like I remember one of my
can have
best
a Spinal
clients.
Tap moment.
We were in London, and it was a show in Paris for something that was in demand. And I said, "Well, let's take the train there to see it." And he's like, "I don't feel like it." I said, "One of us should go." And he bought the thing. It was like hottest of the hot. He got it home, and within 2 minutes, he called me and says, "I don't like it," and it looked different. And it's like because you didn't go or let me go. It's like it's. I mean, I think there's exceptions. Like you could buy an Ed Ruscha from a PDF, right?
I think if you know a work and if you know an artist's oeuvre, I think you can buy a work from a PDF nowadays. And
call
me newfangled, but
yeah, I think there are some artists. If you've done all your homework, you
and that's
can
the point.
Do that. Also, I mean, how much time did you put works on reserve before you came?
Oh, well, it varies depending on when I've got the access to the file, to the work.
But I mean, at the fair, did you have some reserves that you had to come in the first hour?
I did, yeah.
What were they?
I can't tell you those.
Of course you can.
No, don't discuss.
It's like,
don't discuss my clients.
I can
I'm not
keep
like
a secret.
You, Josh.
It's the people who I tell who can't keep the secrets.
No.
And are you finding you have a little bit more time to make the decision in your space?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, oh, you can have till tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely. No problem with a reserve.
And then maybe they go to Thursday. And
I think that's good. I think that's a relief. It's charming again.
But are you getting someone that's like, you have to tell me like in the next 10 minutes? I think that's really, I understand why they have to do it. And I understand like, if they don't get an answer now, the guy may walk in 5 minutes later and he might not be there 5 hours from now.
I suppose, like you, it depends on your relationship with the gallery. And I don't tend to deal with galleries who act like that.
Do you tend to have a certain number of galleries you have like 5 or 10 really the strong relationships there where you're much more powerful as an advisor for all your clients than for any of your clients?
Yes, of course.
So who are some of your favorite galleries? That you can say without giving up that.
Well, I mean, of course, I mean, they're the well-known. I mean, House and Worth is impeccable. Xavier Hufkins, White Cube, Victoria Moreau.
There's a reason they're so successful.
Yeah.
They have a lot of really great art.
And we've grown up with them. I mean, we've grown up with all the gallery directors and owners and all the artists. So it's easy to advise with confidence on the works and knowing that you've got a good relationship to get the work.
And you've done that homework for years.
30
so that when you
years.
have that 2 minutes of seeing it, you can move fast if you're well prepared.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's so much, for me, it's so much better now because when I first came to Basel, no, I think I was the first person to ever email an artwork. Literally, I used to come with a big camera and a bronze laptop, which I plugged into the PABX in the Ritty Hotel, where I was staying at night. And I used to have to go around and literally take notes. I had a trio, write down all the details of the artwork, photograph it, then send it back. It would crash the whole hotel PABX sometimes because the 3 megabyte image, you couldn't send it.
Yeah, to remember the transparencies. If I sent you
God,
one,
yeah.
what if I never get it back and they're so expensive to make? And we had a list of my gallery days of who got the sides, who got transparencies, and you run out. And oh my God, like they better buy it because I can't sell it without this.
That's right.
And now, I was talking to somebody yesterday who like knows my history and all that, and they didn't even realize the Baer Faxt was because of a fax machine, because they'd never seen a fax machine.
I know.
And they went, "That's why it was pretty funny."
I've had that conversation with younger generation here now, because I've been reading the Baer Faxt since it was a fax.
That used to be me standing there.
Yeah, I know. I imagined it. But it was great. And it's great to see it develop the way it has. But yes, most people don't know what a fax machine is.
Typewriter, camera, things like that. So it's like, but do we live in a world now? And I think the art business, what's popular, has changed a little bit. There's a real sense of how does it look on my iPhone? How does it look on my computer? So I'm at dinner with my fellow, hedge fund guys who own breweries like Foster's, which I understand is not in Australia. Who knew? And they want to show their friend on their phone their piece. And if you put your Donald Judd there, it's like, that doesn't look like anything. They don't. So do you think that technology has sort of muted a generation of how they see art through, and you've had to live through all these reproductions so much.
And it does get fatiguing. You do get image fatigue looking through endless reproductions. But hopefully my job and your job is to just distill the highlights and present highlights
That's why
to
I
clients,
don't look at
so
the
they don't
PDFs.
have to do that.
I come here, see it in the flesh, but I'm probably missing opportunities at the same time.
Also, I mean, I think it's 6 of one and half a dozen of others. It's whatever you need to do. You don't need to look at PDFs because you're in New York. You can walk down the middle. You can walk down any street in Chelsea, see major art in the flesh at any time. Living in Australia, you can't do that. But how do you keep up and maintain that knowledge? And I even understand how local art relates to an international standard. I think that's just as important to benchmark, so local artists have an opportunity to see and understand what's happening internationally.
Well, that's the challenge, is the difference between things that are provincial.
That's right.
And things that are global, or what's the term I sometimes like, glocal.
That's right.
Glocal is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Provincial.
Or regional.
Regional, not interesting. Provincial, not interesting.
I mean, we shouldn't be so dismissive. It's totally interesting if that is what you want to be involved with. But you and me, I want to be involved with the main game. I want to be involved with what is close to the center.
I was in Saudi Arabia on a panel, and this big collector there, and she went on forever for 20 minutes talking about her Saudi art collection, and then she started talking about her international collection. And I was about to get up and scream, like, combine them, when she finally said, but I'm now seeing them together. And I thought, thank God.
Yeah.
It's like, don't keep them siloed. And there's a desire. I mean, is there a desire among collectors in Australia to not get international because it keeps prices down and they can have more?
I think collectors start out, as they do in most countries, collecting local art, collecting Australian art. And then to the extent that they meet people like me and become educated, they then come to, say, Art Basel, or they come to the Venice Biennale, and their eyes are opened. And often that is detrimental to the Australian artists, because I feel that my generation were very supportive, and still are, but we're extremely supportive to a generation of Australian artists. But then we all then got the international, we saw what was available. It was like Plato's cave, and we sort of left the scene, and probably
There's some amount of
know?
resentment that comes with
Yeah.
that, right? And the prices that are different. But I can imagine some people, collectors, like to keep it all to themselves. So there's like a certain group that doesn't want them to become too international because they can't afford them.
Well, that's right, and as do the museums. I mean, again, it's just cultural fracking occurs on a number of levels.
So how big is the art industry in Australia? You're the only person I really know. So you have...
That's what Sam Keller once said to me.
Like,
We don't know what to do with you, Amanda. You're the only Australian here.
But is that true? And how big is really the market? How many? I mean, when I started in my gallery days, there were 3 art advisors that we knew, maybe. Estelle Schwartz, Barbara Guggenheim, and Carol Goldberg. That was it.
I only knew Jeffrey Deitch. That was who I sort of thought. I didn't know there were anyone else in the world.
And Jeffrey had a strange thing because he started with the bank.
Yes.
In that way, and then quickly moved. But it was a really tiny group.
I thought,
And now, I mean, what is
I feel I should wear a black armband now.
representing?
Art advisors. Yeah, that's right.
It's like,
I feel.
I mean, in some places there's a gazillion of them.
Oh, ask it. Put your hand up. Half the room would put their hand up.
So that's kind of good.
Would you put your hand up?
Would I? Sure.
I might keep mine. I might not now.
But it depends where.
Yes.
You know, it's like I would. But the truth is that, I don't know, 75% of the auction market flows through advisors, buying and selling, maybe more by dollar. I mean, and by dollar, it's a huge amount in the business. And I'm going to guess a huge amount of the contemporary art business flows through you in one, you're a continent, right?
Well, that's right.
I'm trying to
That's
remember
right.
what's down there.
Yeah, it's a continent, yes.
So how many people are in your network as you're mentoring and helping people? Are there 5, 50, 500 with Gmail accounts?
Well, who are art advisors?
Yes.
Oh, I think there's probably 500.
500.
No. Yeah.
And how many of them are really actually, it's like half the real estate brokers in America don't sell one house a year.
Yes.
So I've got to think of that 500. How many of them do more than 50,000? I don't know. So Australian dollar more or less?
Less.
Less a year.
Try half.
Try half. Okay. Well, I should go.
That's another impediment. I mean, the Australian dollar is sort of 60 cents to the US dollar at the moment. So add on travel. If you think of Australians coming internationally, you've not only got the travel, then you've got the dollar, which is 60 cents to the American dollar. Then you've got shipping the work back. So, I mean, it's an enormous overlay.
But as the US dollar weakens, it's better.
Yes, I know. We're looking forward to
for
that
the
time.
art economy, because Americans still going
People
to
buy
pay,
American, yeah,
and it's cheaper for everybody else.
to buy American.
So having a weak dollar is good for the art market.
Well, it is, but in Australia's case, for instance, sometimes it can work the other way because Australian art, because Australian art it hasn't kept pace. When I started coming to Basel, Australian art was there with international art in price point, in philosophy, in sort of standard, but somehow I think since the world's gone global, and as I said to you, we've got all those middle points of this global world, which is Asia, America, Europe, and Latin America or Middle East. And as the world went global, I feel that every part just pushed Australia out of that little corner and said, we can take care of that. And so the Australian price level has just not kept up.
I wonder if
internationally. So
on prices, I kind of laugh because you'd see prices like in Basel many years like in dollars. But if the euro is stronger, all of a sudden you see them pricing them in euros.
Well, that's right.
So I wonder if sometimes they price things in Australia in US dollars, unless it makes more money to be in Australian dollars, and suddenly
they
all the
tried that.
prices.
Some people tried that for people like Tracy Moffat, for instance, when she was showing globally.
Oh man, that's a name from the past.
Yeah, well, she's still there.
That was like a big international artist, like doing things like a Dia, right?
Yeah, Dia Foundation.
Yeah, but she did.
MoMA.
Yeah, but photography is like completely like destroyed.
Well,
Speaking of somebody who collects Gursky and keeps losing money, and I love Gursky.
well, I think that's a really interesting point. How you say how it's been destroyed for you? Why is it? I think there are a number of factors.
I think, as we're talking about the phone and the computer, everybody's a photographer. Everybody now understands the manipulation of photography. And I think I keep waiting for the moment to come back. But it may not.
I wonder if it will. I mean, again, that moment when we had Gursky's Struth Roof and the Candida Hoffer and all of that. I mean, I thought there was a time where I thought I just couldn't look at a painting. I thought there was only a photograph could make me feel about the abstract nature of the world and, you know, these big buildings and electricity. And I thought there was no way. And then, you know, fast forward 8 years or something, I couldn't look at a photograph when you had all the young girl photographers and everything suddenly was photography. And I thought, oh my God, I can't look at a photograph.
But we can always seem to look at painting.
Well, painting is dead, long-lived painting.
That's pretty cool idea. So we're on this international merry-go-round. Have you been spending time in the Gulf and thinking about Art Basel?
No.
It's a pretty easy flight from Australia.
Well, it's great. Actually, it's terrific for me. But yes, it's terrific because it's on the way to Europe for me. And it's on the way to the US for me. I just prefer to go that way.
So you're down for going there in February.
Yes, it will mess with my summer. I mean, it's a little early to leave because then I'll have to come back for Hong Kong.
I have to go backwards. I was talking to somebody about going to Africa now in safari. It'd be so hot, and they looked at me like I was an idiot. It's like, it's winter down there. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. It's like keeping track of all that, and like, I don't know how you deal with the time zones. It's like
sleeping tablets.
Yeah. That worked. I wish I had one last night. So, one last thought: if something special you saw, it doesn't have to be anything that you bought or wanted to buy.
Yeah, in the fair or just generally
in the fair
Basel
or
this time?
in Basel. I mean, it could be the Jordan Wolfson Room. It could be the Basel Social Club. It could be.
Well, I actually really had a very exciting time in the Sir Surpus exhibition at the Kunsthalle. I thought that was a terrific exhibition. I get used to looking at art and you're looking at exhibitions and going through them. But I thought that was a really terrific exhibition. And I was really galvanized by that. I think she's a terrific young artist. She's really young. Yeah,
unfortunately, dynamic. I was going at the Kunsthalle restaurant and bar, so...
Yeah, well, I went there straight after looking at the exhibition.
And so it's like, it's in the same building, which is kind of cool.
Which doesn't mean you've seen the exhibition, though, does it?
No.
It's like going to the VIP lounge, and I was saying to a client the other day who wants to sit in the... And I said, look, just coming to the VIP lounge doesn't mean you've seen the show. You have to actually look at the work. It's not like photocopying and you've read it.
Who are sort of speculators or dealers. They never came to the fair. They just sat at the bar at the Three Kings trading art around the room.
Yeah.
It's like, that's going to not end well. And it didn't end well.
Yeah, so what happened?
It's like they're stuck on stuff and they're just like, I don't know where they've gone.
Do you see as much of that? There were a couple of years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, there was such a high level of trading and frenzied activity. I feel that's really muted now and it's more sedated.
It is.
Do you feel it's more genuine or more decent?
No, but it's just everybody was a genius then.
Yeah.
So, but I was involved with one of those artists that took off crazy, being Amawako Ba'afo, and working with him directly for a short period of time. And I thought, he's an exceptional artist. And then all that happened to his career, and the prices and all that was crazy down. But it didn't take away from the fact that I thought he made really good stuff.
Absolutely.
So both things can be true. And, but other artists that had this meteoric rise, he's a nice guy, Joel Messler, but I don't really like his work. So it's like...
He painted my portrait once in an independent fair.
For
in
20 minutes?
One of those terrible ones. I mean, it looked so terrible. No one likes a portrait painted by Joel Messeroth, but I'm glad to have it.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about Warhol doing your portraits, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody looked better.
Yeah, not Joel didn't, I don't think.
Yeah, and I like Joel.
Personally.
He's an interesting dealer and guy and all
Yeah.
that, but I saw that kind of thing. So sometimes it's okay, and other times now. But I think those sort of arbitrage moments of buying it today and selling it double tomorrow, either they raise the prices to make secondary and primary the same, which discourages that, or there's just not some guy whose parents are bankers from Bolivia, but the kid who doesn't know what to do, so they're buying and selling art. So that sort of thing.
Because they can.
Because they're not sure what else to do, and it seems fun, and it's like, well, listen, Dad, I just made $100,000 this month on this painting. You would see them at Phillips in London. The whole room was that generation doing
Buying
that. And it's like, it's okay to be out of that moment.
I think so. I think so. The other thing I think is interesting about coming to Basel is seeing just trends. They might not be trends at the moment, but
Yeah, that's my next question was going to be, did you feel a trend?
well, I mean, suddenly there's David Hammonds everywhere. I mean, every sort of second booth seemed to have their version, their David Hammond. That was interesting.
There are actual David Hammonds or somebody's riff on David Hammond?
Well, I mean, it was meant to be their actual one. I didn't go and check.
I saw
But
a
I mean,
couple. They weren't. I'm a huge David Hammonds fan. I'm a big supporter for a long
I
time.
think it's terrific.
But there were kind of mediocre ones here.
Yeah, a lot more covering up. I thought there was a lot of sculpture. I thought it was great. There was very little photography, very little film, a lot of sculpture, which I thought was terrific. I thought it was really interesting to have not just, colour-filled ersatz sort of figurative painting.
Well, I was
that
talking
seems to be gone.
a prominent dealer on the second floor, and he's saying, listen, my booth is 3 times the size here than it is at Art Basel Paris. So the decisions of what they can do are often, they have more space. So they're able to do a little bit more of that.
And it's so luxurious for collectors or anyone who wants to actually see the art. I think it feels really good this year.
Well, we look forward to continuing this dialogue. Before we run off, I do owe you a huge thank you, because there's a person sitting over there who's our midpoint. Hi, Isabella.
The gift that keeps on giving.
The gift that keeps on giving, that worked for you for a long time.
You did.
And
Great
you
colleague.
wrote a lovely reference letter as we hired her. So I thank you every day, because she's been great. Let's see if she's not quite blushing, but we can hope for that. And thank you for those secret stories about her.
Oh, don't worry. I'll give you the bank account later.
That
Yes.
and all that. So also thank you to Manuela of New York, my art farm, for sponsoring this edition. Baer Faxt Live from, in case you forgot, we're in Basel. But as world travelers, if you go to the Soho, so are there Sohos in Australia? There's London.
Just about to be opened up. I think they're opening one soon.
Well, I don't mean just Soho House. Do you have areas called Soho?
No,
No, you
we're
shouldn't.
not that colonial.
Okay. But in New York, I'm sure you'll go there to the restaurant. It's got great art, great food, seasonal, fresh stuff. It's all green for how they make things. So
It's fabulous. I've been there. It's fabulous.
great.
Yeah.
I mean, they do great food in LA and Somerset, Scotland. I mean, it's hard to be good at multiple things. but
Rashid
they
Johnson table.
Yes. So check it out, manuela.nyc.com. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you, Joe.